Welcome back, guys, to the Improvement Season podcast with me, Pascal Flor, and on the other end, it is Steve Hall. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. I love that word. when I saw Spotify actually releasing the top 10 list or top 5 lists, I think it was, and people were just posting about it, how much they are listening to our podcast and also the Improvement Season podcast. And I was stunned by that. And I just want to take the time now and say, so, I'm close to crying when I think about it. But thank you very much, guys, for the support. It means so much to me. And I would also assume to Steve as well, that you guys are always tuning in, listening to what we have to say, the rambles, the idiotic jokes, the sometimes also inappropriate comments that we have. And you tune in on a weekly basis. And that since ages now already, and that is crazy. I mean, some people, they've listened to each and every single episode, and that just imagining that is like since back like 3.5 years, over 3.5 years, and just thinking about it, that someone wants to tune in, listening to us. To be honest, I still don't get it, but I'm very, very grateful for that, and also appreciate it so much. And yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for each and every single one who is supportive of our platform and also the Improvement Season podcast.
Very, very well said. I can only concur with all those thoughts, because I only think of, not only was, especially those who have stuck around since the beginning. I had one person message me and was like, I listened since episode 1. And I was like,
that's crazy. Wow.
So you heard like some of my really poor interviewing skills, terrible internet, no editing, nothing very good. And then we always talk about like our first Improvement Season chats. I imagine like they were very cumbersome. Obviously for you, English was like, it's not your first language, but you're like, people wouldn't know that now, not really. And whereas back then we probably didn't know how to communicate with each other as effectively as we do now, obviously way less experienced, various things. So for the people, that goes out to the people who've been loyal since like day one. Like, yeah, I respect you, but also I can understand why some people have only just started in the last year, because it's definitely improved.
Yeah, and it's crazy because just last week I've talked about like negative comments and that getting close to me and also close to you, right? But it's so funny because then Spotify is releasing that and it just completely puts these negative comments in the shadow. Also then the very kind comments that some people put into the last video as well were very much appreciated as well. But it came at the perfect time, to be honest. And also some of the people said, like, it's crazy to have followed your journey because so much in both of our lives has changed, and we have evolved so much ever since we did the first recordings, from a muscular perspective, from a knowledge perspective, but also from a private life perspective. I mean, I know back then I was going on Tinder dates. I was, binging. I was so alone at times. And now, man, I have 2 kids at home. I live now in an own house, and soon you'll be moving into your own house as well. Hopefully,
fingers crossed.
Hopefully,
big fingers crossed.
Then also just from a muscular perspective, just looking at where we have been in 2017. Both of our muscular endeavors has been crazy. Of course, I'm not crazy huge or so, but when I look at the pictures from 2017, the prep, man, I was looking like someone who doesn't even lift. And now I'm looking like someone who doesn't even lift, but sometimes you could actually ask yourself like, oh, or does he? Right? And that is just amazing to see, like both of our journeys. And of course, it sounds a little bit narcissistic to talk about me and being impressed about the journey that I've taken as well. But when you reflect upon it and in hopefully as objective manner as possible, I think that there are just crazy things that have happened in the past and now moving forward. And this will be our journal. Like in 10 years from now, you have each and every single week over the past 13 years then, basically nearly the entire lifting career has been then journaled. And just from that perspective alone, I would just love to continue this Revive to Stage Improvement Season podcast.
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, you don't want to constantly be bigging yourself up, because if you keep looking at the past and you don't focus on progressing into the future, then you're going to hold yourself back. But I think it is good now and then, especially when you do have a period of time in your lifting career or in your working career or in life, to just reflect upon where you were a year ago and just see where you are now. And that's why I like that we're documenting it here. I like that documenting it on social media and having our vlogs in particular now. It's quite cool to then look back, because they don't feel like much now, but you'll look back at some of these COVID vlogs that we put over on the member site, which will eventually come out, and we'll be like, man, that's so weird that was a thing, and that's the way I spoke, or that's how my technique was. I always joke about some of the old, and you even said it, like the old YouTube videos of me, and I'm like posing, and Brett Freeman, WMBF Bantamweight Pro, is he Bantamweight? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bantamweight. He literally just like screenshot and sent me today a YouTube video where I was like going over my question that I sent into his podcast when really? I was like 21 or something at the time, and I sent in a question to because he had a podcast at the time. He was interviewing like natural pros and stuff, and I was like binge listening to that. And I have a video where I like put in the clip from the podcast and I talk about like my question and the answer there, and it's like, wow, that's really cringy to look back at, but it's also part of the journey. And that's why I just encourage a lot of the listeners, especially some of the younger ones who, again, maybe similar to us, but 5 years behind or something, like share your journey, talk about it, because you won't regret it when you look back. And there are other people that will enjoy seeing that happen, because, I mean, people like seeing the top, the creme de la creme, but actually the reality and like real progress sometimes is a little bit more motivating and inspiring, and more kind of keeps them grounded and keeps them wanting to go as well. Like when I see some of these younger lifters and younger guys in the industry who are super smart and like lifting with pristine technique, and I'm just like, man, they're working hard. They're going to be bigger than I am in a few years. They're going to overtake me. I know it. Yeah. So it's cool
absolutely.
To see.
And you talked about identifying with people on the internet, or like the creme de la creme. And to be honest, I can't identify with those big guys. So it's cool to watch, absolutely. But I can't really see myself there, right? Because it's so far away from wherever we'll end up being. Like, I'm not looking up to Lewis Hamilton just because he's one of the greatest drivers, Formula One drivers ever, right? I'm not black, I'm not rich, I'm not a good driver. And even though that I'm driving a car, I will probably never get there as well, right? And the same applies to something like this. Only because I do bodybuilding, I'm not ignorant to the fact that I will never look the way the big pros will or do at the moment. And even if I were to take lots of drugs, I probably wouldn't get there either. Right? I would probably die before I will ever look like an IFBB pro. Right? And that's why it's so cool then looking at some people such as you and I, for example, who unfortunately are not the genetically blessed, right? It would be good for our Instagram and YouTube following, but that's not who we are or what was giving to us. But it's cool to see that we are not giving up and we are just continuing what it is that we are, what we love doing. And by that, hopefully grow and do the very best of that situation. Basically also what we've talked about last week, where I said like, man, it's not news to me when someone is saying like, you look like someone who doesn't even lift. Hey, do you think that I don't know that? Fucking hell, of course I know that. But what should I do? Just give up and do nothing? No, I love this. I love this journey. I love this sport. I'll just continue what it is that I'm doing, even if I won't be the best. And I think that no one has to always have the incentive of becoming the best, only to continue doing something. How sad of a world would that be otherwise? If you're playing an instrument and you love it, but you know that you won't ever be a professional musician, would you just like stop it because you won't be the best drummer in the world? No. All right? And the same applies to this. It's not about becoming the greatest of all time. It's about what you love and what you enjoy. And then just continue the journey and enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. and at risk of repeating what we said last episode, I'm going to switch the gears because otherwise I think we may end up repeating bits of what we said. How is training from home going? I know we had the same session today. We both had pull.
Oh, really?
I saw you rowing.
It's all right. I mean, I don't want to make any kind of secret about that. Training from at home is not as great as in the gym. At least for me, it isn't, because I never truly committed to training from at home. Like in the sense of that I decided for myself, okay, I'm going to build a home gym and I will train here for the rest of my lifting career. I think if you do that, I think that training from at home can or may even be more productive. But for me, it was like forced upon me. Like, okay, you're now going to train from at home for the next unforeseeable future time. So that's what I'm doing, and I do my very best in that regard. But everything feels a little bit heavy, and you have to, I don't know, because it's just random equipment, you have to always kind of adjust to it. And I've built myself like 2 boxes where I now can do belt squats. And the belt that I'm using, sometimes the chain is a little bit not aligned, and then the weight is kind of shifting and rotating, and then I can't really get into a proper position. The belt is kind of hurting in my groin. Then also here today... Knee sleeves?
Over the belt.
Oh, all right.
It's great.
Perfect.
Someone gave me that tip. I've completely... The name has escaped me, so hopefully he's not even tuning in. But
perfect.
he told me put my SBD knee sleeves over the belt, and it padded out.
Because I was actually putting that on my vlog, on my latest vlog, and asking like, okay, it hurts at times. Do you guys have any kind of recommendation of what it is that I can do? Anyway, what I was doing then today is, because of those boxes, I can push them together, and then it kind of acts like a smaller bench. So I was giving it a try today for dumbbell bench press. And what ended up happening is that on my back, I have like, you guys may remember, have like always that one single spot that sometimes kind of contracts, and that it's painful for a couple of days, and then it's all right again. First exercise of the day was lying down. Maybe I didn't put myself in the best position, and then all of a sudden after the set, it just snapped, and I was just like, oh fuck. I still continued doing the push session, and waited a couple of hours then to do the second session, which was then the pull, and it was all right. So I could continue just doing the training sessions. What I wanted to say though, it's all right training from home. It's not the greatest, but yeah, what am I supposed to be doing? Also here, the option is not to train at all, and that is not an option that is even in my head. So it is what it is. Making the best of the situation, and Germany has just yesterday got together once again for a discussion about the regulations, because the numbers simply don't go down at the moment. They continue staying up there. So what they ended up deciding is that the restrictions will continue at least until the 10th of January.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So does that mean Christmas... You're going to have to... Can you meet up with other households at Christmas, or are they making any allowances for that?
Very likely, because they are going to make some... so what's it called again? They will allow forward for that period of time, which is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous and absolutely stupid to allow for it. I mean, I once again, without going down that rabbit hole, right? I don't see the rationale for something like that. And why are you allowing this, but other things aren't allowed then, when people are getting together in just that period of time? I simply don't get it. But at the same time, it's a Christian party that is controlling Germany at the moment, CDU, CSU. And if you really then think about that background, where they are coming from, it's the fest for the family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what can I say? The thing is, one of my athletes, I talked with her about the entire regulations and stuff, and I'm not a politician, so who am I to say what regulations would be appropriate and what not, right? Especially in a healthy democracy, you are expecting that you need to make some compromises, and especially then in a situation that has never happened before. Like in a healthy democracy, I think that you need to actually do or take a lot of compromises based on your own stance or viewpoint, right? Because otherwise we would never get further ahead of it, right? And that's why, what can I do about the situation? Nothing, right? And complaining about it doesn't really help either. The only thing that would help is actually getting into politics and trying to change something about it myself. But I don't think that I would be suited for that.
I don't even know how you really get into politics and everything, but I think it's similar here in that we have we're in tiered systems at the moment. So there's like tier 1, 2, and 3, I think, but only like Cornwall is the only tier 1, so they can do various things, but we can't, like, I can't meet up with a friend into a restaurant. We can't do that. But me and Charlotte can go out for a meal at the moment, and then for Christmas we have it like they're just breaking all the rules basically, like you're saying, from I think like the 23rd to the 27th or something. You can meet up and be in a bubble with 2 other households. So it's just like, I understand that the majority of people are Christian and they want to celebrate Christmas and it's a big deal, and maybe it would boost the economy because like people are buying gifts more so. I think that's probably a poor argument there, and maybe people would do it anyway, so yeah, that as well. But at the end of the day, like, this is about people's health, well-being, and we didn't make special allowances for other kind of religious things like what was it, Eid and things like that, where it's a big deal for them to celebrate. Yep. It just feels a little bit unfair and Absolutely. Not really just.
Totally. I wholeheartedly agree, and that's basically also what I said to Katie, that not everyone is celebrating Christmas. And actually, there are a lot of people who don't, right? Due to either a religious background, cultural background, or because they are simply alone. And we have a vast majority of people who don't really have a family that they go to celebrate their Christmas at, or who are just singles and live maybe alone here in Germany, for example, right? Especially in a city like Berlin, there's so many people, foreigners, who don't travel back, especially not now during the time where they can't really travel back home again, right? That's why I find it so unfair to actually then allow for this for of course, it's still a majority of people, but I
What's the
simply don't get it.
The consequence afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be another lockdown or something.
Yeah, exactly. You are risking, for the sake of Christmas and New Year's Eve, you're risking an extended lockdown or another lockdown. And I can't see that this is worth it. I can't see that.
On that note of travel, how crazy are the roads, the trains all going to be? Because suddenly we're allowed to then go somewhere on that date. It's like everyone's going to be traveling on the 23rd. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
So I want to avoid that if we can.
Everyone is going to Cornwall.
Exactly. And we actually are meant to be going to Cornwall.
Sorry?
To Charlotte's family. Yeah, they live in Cornwall and Bude. So
and everyone in the UK is traveling to Cornwall now to celebrate Christmas there because of
everything's open.
Easier restrictions.
Yeah. The Cornish are not happy right now. They are not happy.
Well, maybe they are. They make the deal of their life now.
It's also Christmas that period. Yeah. But to bring it back to kind of nutrition and training, although that will impact things. You're still, where are you in your mesocycle right now? Are you in week 2, 3, 4?
3? Two. Now it's 2. Yeah, exactly. Man, I really do hope that the gyms are reopened by the time I finish the mesocycle, but I don't think that they will be, which is unfortunate. But I will start the cutting phase after this mesocycle anyway. So yeah, that's basically it. Nothing more, nothing fancy here. It's just like pretty straightforward now. Slight gaining phase, slight surplus, right? To actually make use of the time instead of just like hovering around maintenance for too long. Yeah. And yeah, what about yourself now?
Yeah, so I just entered very similar. I'm in week 3 though. And then I just made some modifications. The gym's opened here on Wednesday. So I've had now 3 sessions back in the gym. So I'm AM and PM yesterday and then did my morning session today. It's been quite nice. I'm fortunate that the stuff I have at home was quite kind of like the gym. So I did like bent over rows from a deficit in the gym today, but I was doing that at home. it's just more convenient doing it at the gym. It's just a bit horrible doing it here, and even the environment is better because I haven't got Ada jumping all over me, trying to lick me and trying to entertain her at the same time. But some things I really got a good groove on at home, and I'm like, I can't set that up actually in the gym the same way. Like I was doing some Meadows rows here, and I was like, I just got into the groove of those, and I was like, I'm gonna have to drop those out because I can't really set it up the same way in the gym, because it's just the other annoying thing with the gym. And not to say the gym's annoying, but obviously it gets busy, so then you can't just jump on equipment whenever you like. So sometimes that can be, you forget those small things that you take for granted when you are training from home, at least. But it's the same way back and forth. But ultimately it's great being back in the gym, especially because I'll be able to use the hack squat again, which would be great. And belt squats, they're becoming a little bit of they're a huge pain from home, and they without the knee sleeves over the belt, I couldn't do them because the pain was too excruciating. So that helped loads.
I was
but now,
suffering big time.
The weight I have to use on them, it's becoming limiting to the machine, and so it doesn't topple over and crush me and like rip apart or something. So I don't know what I'll exchange actually a belt squat for in the gym. I don't think using a dipping belt is the best way for a belt squat, is it? Fast, efficient fat loss. Does that sound like music to your ears? The mini cut movement might just be for you. Mini cuts are like robbing the fat bank. You want to get in and out with as much fat as possible. In a short period of time, you could easily look to lose 6 to 12 pounds of fat. The mini cut movement is excellent. There's group support for extra accountability and also expert help within the group. We have educational videos to keep you on track along the way, and you get all your nutrition and training customized and individualized for you. So if that sounds of interest, get involved with the mini cut movement.
No, I was even thinking about how can I build, because I was Googling a belt squat, right? And I was like looking for how other people are building it or doing it themselves in a gym. And most of the time it's actually attached to kind of a landmine deadlift station, right? So that you actually have that. And then you just put the belt or kind of the chains around the barbell instead of like wrapping it around the plates and stuff. And for me personally, I need to wear my weighted vests simply because it's just too painful if I wear too much weight between my or underneath my ball sack.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward exercise, especially because to load it, like that's why the machines are great, because then you can just like, you can get in position, then load it, and it's like fine. But if you don't have that, then somehow you have to get the plates in a position so that you can get into position whilst putting the load on there, and then go. And then when you're kind of close to failure, you're like, shit, am I just going to collapse and just fall? Or can I try and get these weights in a safe position?
Yeah. And it's also very painful, like for me personally, wearing, so I had 40 kilograms between my legs and then 30 kilograms of a weighted vest on. And it was just like painful to stand up after a heavy set of just standing there and then putting the plates on my chair, right? And then standing there because I couldn't sit down. It was just like, oh, fuck, it was so tiresome.
That's actually just going to be fatiguing you.
Yeah, instead of just having a machine where you just unrack yourself from the chains and then, I don't know, sit down, lie down. And that is exhausting, like, honestly. You are kind of in that static hold situation between the sets. Ugh.
I know it, like a lot of people be able to relate when they do like dips and then you just, or weighted pull-ups or something, and you're just standing there between your sets with this weight and you're like, should I just take this off or should I just stand here with it? But it's way more weight than that. So I can see that could be like, actually horrible, because you don't want to take it all off and then you have to put it all back on. Oh yeah.
That's why, especially because the construction that I have right now with the chains, my dipping belt, the first chain isn't long enough. And I have to actually have a second chain that is then wrapped around the plates. But just that alone, putting it on again, is already a hassle. If I then had to also take on and off my weighted vests, it was just like, I couldn't be bothered doing. I would then probably train like JP style, like a top set and a down set.
Yeah, otherwise it's just too much. I can see that. Just Myo Rep It, or what's it called, dog crap training, something along those lines. Rest pause. I don't think there's anything else. Nothing exciting. You brought up the house, so I'll just give people a small update. I can't even remember if I've spoken about it much here. No. But basically, it needs to happen this month. Otherwise, it's probably not happening.
Crazy.
That's the long and short
Steve
of
is
it.
buying a house like now.
We've signed it and everything. The deeds are signed. It's just the exchange date. They need to find somewhere to rent. Actually, what date is it today? Is it the 5th? No, 2 days, and they're viewing a property, and then we know, basically.
Okay.
And if it's no good...
It could still be turned down.
Yeah, they have nowhere to go at the moment.
Oh, crazy.
But then it has to happen this month, otherwise they're giving birth in January, so they don't want to move. Our mortgage offer runs out end of Jan, so then it's like we have to go through the whole process again. And it's just too much money and hassle, and I think I'm over it by then. I just want to fucking give up and rent forever.
Yeah. And can't you just move in together?
We'll move in with them. Be like, you have our flat, we'll have your house.
Yeah, you can give birth to your child. I also take care of the child at times if you want to.
I was so excited. Like, I've been thinking about the garage, which I'm now going to make into basically a working studio. And I'm like, I'm going to put, like, you have those soundproofing. I was like, I can soundproof it.
Oh, nice.
Put a carpet down or something in there and make it really nice and like a man cave / office type of space with my gym equipment somewhat in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be, it was going to be a home gym, but there's a cool gym quite nearby that I'm like, man, they have a cool set of kit there. I don't want to train from home with my shitty stuff.
Yeah. But it's going to be your office then.
So it'll be an office, yeah.
Yeah.
Should be great for like videos and stuff. And then, because it's a non-commercial gym, I imagine they'll let a videographer be in there, or at least let me have like a proper setup. So then I can get better kind of YouTube videos and vlogs and stuff, which would be cool. Because commercial gyms, you're not even meant to record yourself with your camera, let alone like your camera phone, let alone someone coming in and videographing you. So yeah, maybe exciting times ahead. Stressful times are guaranteed.
Yeah, it's crazy that you decided to just like go out and shop, and then all of a sudden you bought a house.
Well, we had our offer accepted.
Right? No.
We had our offer accepted. When was it? Like July or something?
Yeah, I know. I was just joking around. Like, Charlotte, do you want to go shopping in the mall? Yeah, let's do this. And then you're coming back home, and you just bought a house. That must be the case when you're absolutely rich.
Minted.
Like, so what are we going to buy here today? Don't know. A Lambo? Sure thing. Why not?
I sometimes look at things and I'm just like, that must only be in the world at that price for people who are just stupidly rich. Like, I don't know, ketchup that costs £50, something like that. Where it's just like, who buys that? The stupidly rich people.
I mean, some people, they are so rich. And of course, they always have like a hedge fund manager who then takes care of their finances, or like takes care of the vast majority of money, so that it's that they are not losing money, but actually making more money off the money that they have already. Or at a specific point, you are so rich that you have a hard time spending enough money without losing money, because you're so rich that you're just continuing to make money from the interest payments that you're receiving from that amount of money that you have already. I can't recall who it was, but someone said like, I could actually go out and buy something like an expensive car on a daily basis, and I would still go out with more money by the end of the day. And also, if you want to be very depressed, just look or Google at what Jeff Bezos makes per day. Per day. Just Google that. And
he's the Amazon owner, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing something.
It is so frustrating. That is the craziest thing. This is something that is outside of our scope of. We can't even comprehend that. It's so crazy what he's making on a daily basis. This is more than most people. Not even the vast majority of people will never see that number in their entire life. Or they could work like for 500 years and they would not make that money in their entire life. That's how much he's making on a daily basis.
I think I saw something on Instagram where it was like, he literally cannot spend all his money.
Yeah.
He can't spend it all. Like, he could try and buy everything in the world. He still wouldn't be able to spend it all. It's just like, what? Yeah,
so
he's killing the game.
I just need to Google that for you guys. So this is just the first article that popped up, which was on August 13th. So perhaps it's now a little bit different. But he's making about, so tightly, 321 million a day. A day. 13.5 million an hour. 20 20,122,884 a minute and 3,715 a second. A second.
So in this podcast alone, he's made a shit ton of money. Oh, it's actually just ridiculous. This
is so, you can't even comprehend that. That is crazy.
And he avoids taxes.
Huh?
Does he not? He avoids taxes as well somehow, or a lot of taxing.
In some of the countries, probably. But yeah, I mean, he could go out and just buy, he could buy a Lamborghini each and every single minute, basically. I would assume that it's somewhere around that price or ballpark, like 200,000 or so. And he would still end up with 22,000 more in his pocket because he's making 222,000 in a minute.
It's scary when, to go on I will try not to go too much of a tangent here, but it's scary when people like that exist. And then the complete opposite in countries like the way the world's set up is just the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. It just seems to be that way.
It's the Cantillon effect, it's called. The closer you are to the monetary source, the more you will benefit from that as well. And something that the COVID situation and pandemic has also very much made clear. Like the ones who needed the least amount of support and stimulus, they received the most. Like, for example, Harvard Business School, they received 9 million just as a stimulus without them even needing them because they are privately sponsored from a lot of rich families and stuff. Crazy. But that's what it is. The closer you are to the monetary source, the more you benefit from that. The further you are away, the less you benefit from that. And we are the ones who are very much the ants, basically, in the hierarchy.
Damn. Should we get to questions?
Yeah.
I have no other... It's all off topic.
Yeah. So, is Andrew Potacek still a supporter? Because he said nothing about him being a supporter.
I actually don't know.
Andrew,
I would need to check.
I will just assume that you're now a supporter, all right? If not, then I would be very sad. Very, very sad. So, Andrew Potacek, of course, have you ever popped a capillary bracing too hard? Lol, did a few times in the day, but literally happened today pushing to failure on hacks. P.S. That's a bloody nose.
So, I don't know why I seem to have what's it called? I have a history of getting a nosebleed deadlifting, basically. I think it's just the Valsalva maneuver for an extended period of time. So, yes, semi-regularly get nosebleeds from deadlifts. I don't think I've had them from any other lift, apart from if my nose has been like sensitive to it and then it's just like gone off. But yeah, deadlifts are the only one I've ever experienced that from. It's not very fun. And it's really annoying because if you do it on set one, then it's going to happen every set afterwards. And for the whole session, you're just like shoving tissue up your nose.
Is it like an anime character where it's just like, like a fountain?
I never had that. It was literally just like pathetic drips come down.
Like more of a small girl now getting her first menstrual cycle.
Oh God, I'm not going there. How about you?
No, never experienced that. My nose has always been rock solid when it comes to these things. Also, as a small kid, these kids that very easily get a nosebleed, right? Where all of a sudden, like, man, you just got off your chair. That's all you did, and all of a sudden you have now a nosebleed. For me, it never happened. Even when I got an elbow in my face while playing football or so, never happened. Sniffing cocaine, never happened as well. So no, my nose is rock solid.
What about being sick?
Being sick, like
in a session, have you ever been sick, vomiting? Sorry.
I thought when you're sick, are you getting a nosebleed? No, never really. I think that this must be a genetic thing as well. I would assume that how much lactate it is that you're producing. Or lactic acid.
I don't know. There was people at school who also were sick more often in like PE classes. I can remember like running and stuff. Yeah. So maybe I reckon there must be a genetic thing.
I've never experienced, no matter how exhausting an exercise was or kind of a task that we needed to do. And I was doing a lot of sports when I was a kid, right? Never. I was having a sensation where the lungs were burning and stuff like that, right? And you couldn't really do anything more, where the breathing was so heavy already that you just wanted to lay down and catch a breath, right? And even this situation where you completely exerted yourself, nothing happened there. So yeah, maybe I didn't ever train hard enough, no matter what I did.
These are clear signs that you are a certified pussy.
Yeah.
If you never had a nosebleed and never puked up in a session.
Wearing the badge. No, cool. So let's move over to another Andrew, another supporter, and that is a long question. Andrew, but he said, and so it's absolutely right. He said, Andrew White, stick with me on this one. All right. So typically I diet in what I would call the RP or Revive Stronger way. Evidence-based to the bone, but I recently decided to test out the potential perks of an aggressive caloric surplus because of a recent study Bill Campbell referenced. In short, he posted in October about a study that overfed non-exercising males by 1,000 calories per day for 100 days straight. They gained on average 12 pounds of fat and 6 pounds of muscle LBN despite being sedentary. My thought was, if sedentary guys can gain 6 pounds of LBN in a surplus like that, what would happen if I trained with very aggressive volumes in a similar surplus? So I programmed a super high volume, kitchen sink, leg focused mesocycle with 3 leg days featuring squats, Bulgarian split squats, barbell step-ups, reverse barbell lunges, and 3 varieties of deadlifting. Again, it was a very aggressive amount of volume that I would never otherwise do, but I did it on purpose. I wound up again 12.7 pounds in 8 weeks from 180 to 192.8 pounds, which is about 1.6 pounds per week and 0.8% gain per week. I started at around 9% body fat by all evidence-based masking recommendations. That's way too fast, but I mostly feel like my legs are growing like wildflowers and I still have hints of lower ab veins. Performance has gone through the roof and I feel full and jacked. What do you make of this? Have I forced another round of newbie gains on myself at 30 years old, or am I an idiot?
I love that, mate. So I think, honestly, my initial thoughts are, it sounds like you're really sold on this big calorie surplus. It sounds like you really got like super hyped up and were really motivated for this training. And so I think you have got a really great mindset around what's just gone on here. And I think that has probably led to a lot of positive things happening. I know for some of my clients just starting up coaching with me, and they've suddenly like had huge renewed motivation, like they're seeing really great progress. And I'm like, I can't say that that's like my special coaching or something. I think they're giving their training more, they're putting in more effort, they're adhering better, whatever it is. So I think when you do something that's kind of like a bit out there and a bit unique and you're really sold on it and you really go for it, I think you really can take yourself mentally to a new level. And that can be really impressive because, yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that study I don't think can be used particularly well upon someone who's well trained. I'd also say lean body mass could be other things, I guess, involved in that, but I don't really want to get into that. 0.8% gain of body weight a week is probably close to double what we tend to recommend, but it's not like absurdly crazy, I would say. So yeah, I guess, yeah, if I was to really summarize my thoughts without getting to the depth of like a surplus and your training age and all of those things, I just reckon you really wanted it this time round and you fueled it super well. Maybe you did a few more things and ticked more boxes than you normally would because you really wanted to make the most out of it. And it sounds like it did really good for you. So I'd be surprised if it continued forever like this. And I'd say you probably would start accumulating quite a bit of fat. That's my kind of guess for going forward. But props to you for trying something because not many people like to especially push such a high calorie surplus. I don't know if you have different thoughts, Pascal.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Not different, but I have many thoughts about it.
Yeah, I'd.
Because, of course, there was also a lot of context behind it as well. And everything that I can say is, of course, with a lack of context overall, or with only the context that you've provided. So first and foremost, I totally agree with what you have said, Steve, that perhaps this was the first time that you actually just trained hard, and perhaps this was the first time that you actually trained with appropriate amounts of volume for you. We know that there's a huge discrepancy of volume needs for people. We know that some people need or can get away with very little volume, and some people need to actually have a huge amount of volume to see a significant growth of muscle tissue. So with that being said, we can't necessarily just assume that the caloric surplus was the culprit for now an appropriate muscle mass gain. Perhaps it was just like your mindset was appropriate, the amount of volume was appropriate. Perhaps this time you were more focused as well because of the additional motivation, and thus you were able to push it from an intensity perspective a little bit harder as well. Perhaps you even incorporated some exercises that caused you to be better at the mind-muscle connection. As you can tell already by all of the things that I'm saying, it's so easy to come to a quick conclusion, like X happened, that's why Y is the case. And this is a flawed way of thinking. We can always just like come to or exclude things, such as when we are doctors. A doctor doesn't know 100% like, okay, this is definitely it, unless he's going through a round of like excluding certain things or coming to a conclusion of like certain symptoms, and based off of that he makes an estimated and calculated guess of what it possibly is. That's also why there are some misdiagnoses, because some diseases are much rarer with the same symptomatics of others, right? And it's not that someone can say 100% this is why it happened. Same as here as well. So many things have changed in a short period of time. So you've done more volume. You've been more probably dedicated. You've run a much higher caloric deficit surplus than in the past. And probably there are even more things that we are not even considering that have changed as well. And when you change so many variables at once, then you can't really pinpoint it to one thing or another, right? It's probably perhaps a couple of things that have happened in that period of time. That being said, 0.8% of body weight gain on average per week is not crazy. On average, I always recommend somewhere between 0.25 up to 0.5% of body weight gain. As you can tell, like on average, that's not too much of a discrepancy to what you've experienced there. 1,000 calories of surplus, though, is quite aggressive, but perhaps it was appropriate for the amount of work that you did. And perhaps you were even then a little bit more active throughout the day just because you've consumed more energy. And this is something that we also have seen in studies, that there are certain individuals that when you overfeed them, they're just making it up via need. And some individuals who just stay sedentary and gain the majority of those additional consumed calories as fat, right? Some burn it off, some don't. So with that being said, I think it's cool that you've experimented, but I think there needs to be way more data being collected over a longer period of time before you're extrapolating any kind of conclusions here, or say like, okay, was this a great idea or was it not? If you, though, feel good with it, if you feel that it was productive, cool. No one can say anything bad about it, right? Because in the end, it is your journey after all, and you do you. Would I do that? Probably not, because I've seen it in the past when I was going through my time of binge eating. I was training my fucking ass off. I was going to the gym 6 days, twice daily, because I was feeling bad about it. Because I felt bad of consuming that many calories, and I was in a massive surplus. And I can't say that I gained a significant amount of muscle mass during that time. And I think that there are many people who are like that, who are going through these cyclical phases of binging, feel bad about it, want to make up for it with additional volume and training intensity, or just like training days, and they don't end up experiencing what you've experienced, right? So we can also look at it from this perspective, that there are probably 100 or 1,000 other cases that are contrary to your experiences now and what you've discovered and observe with yourself, right? So that's why, long story short, I think props to you, cool, but I wouldn't do it myself, and also not with clients.
Yeah, I think you really pinned it home in terms of we don't know what led to the results, and we are skeptical that it was the large surplus that did it, and maybe if you did everything the same but were in a more moderate surplus of like 500 calories, maybe you would have seen everything but gained a little bit less fat. Could have been like, that's kind of, I think, where we're feeling things might have gone, because a surplus, sure, it provides the extra timber, the extra fuel, you can do more volume, you can recover from more, but to a point, and it starts having diminishing returns. And I think you're diminishing at 1,000 for sure, at least in my experience and from what we generally know. So yeah,
totally, absolutely. And once again, I just want to reiterate what you said there. Could you have gotten the same results of muscle mass gain with less fat accumulation over perhaps a longer period of time with a less severe approach? And that is always a question that you need to ask yourself. This is also when it comes, because I thought about it, and I had like 2 athletes that I was going through this week alone in the check-ins. They participated at social events, and they went a little bit
Thanksgiving.
It was once Thanksgiving, and once it was just some kind of.
I had so many Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I think it was even more athletes now that I'm thinking about it due to Thanksgiving. However, what I wanted to say there, or what I said to the vast majority of my athletes, is like, okay, you went above your calories, and now you don't really feel great about it, or you do, right? Because it was a calculated decision of yours. No matter why you did it, it doesn't really matter. The thing is just, you always need to ask yourself the question of like, could you have enjoyed the day as much as you did with a less aggressive approach, or without going above the caloric range for that day? And the answer is most of the time yes. Right? You probably could have had the greatest evening without going over your calories. And the same applies here as well. I would very much assume that you could have gotten the same amount of muscle mass gain with a less fat accumulation, but perhaps over a longer period of time. And I think that is then worth it, in my opinion. Yeah.
But Andrew, I want to know if he continues it, what happens. I want him to report back for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. Funny thing is, there's a saying of like, I don't want to get rich quick. I want to get rich for sure. And that's one of the things as well. I want to build some muscle mass, but I want to for sure build some muscle mass and not fuck myself in the ass and injuring myself or getting overly fat in the journey then, and then perhaps needing to cut down and lose some muscle mass again, or being injured and that I can't continue that journey.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd also, I mean, it's like you mentioned this a few times, the duration. It was so short of a period of time. Realistically, as a natural, even if you are relatively untrained, you're not gaining tons of muscle within a single mesocycle. So it's like, for even if the majority of that weight you gained was muscle, that's very good going, because most people, it certainly wouldn't be. It would be like 25% of that or something.
I don't want to just like continue pounding on that topic, but that brings another thought into my head, and that is like kind of the dreamer's bulk mentality. Because I think when we are convinced about something, we also tend to lose kind of track of reality sometimes. Right? We all know that individual who bulked up, who thinks, oh, look at me, I'm so jacked, I just need to lose 20 pounds. But he needed to actually lose like 60 pounds. He just thought he's so jacked and muscular. And we can even bring up Alberto Nunez, because he is and was the prime example of that. He was bulking up to somewhere around, I don't know, what was it? 230, 240 or so?
That's madness. Right? That's mad.
Yeah, let's just assume 240. And he thought that he's just like the biggest guy ever. And he just needs to cut down to somewhere around 220 or 200 and be shredded, because he now has gained so much weight. And I would assume that in this situation, he also thought that he could see some definition and lines here and there. But now looking back, maybe it wasn't the case. And sometimes I've been there myself. Like in the situation, sometimes you don't notice how much fat you have already accumulated. Up until the point where you have, once again, perhaps lost the weight and look back, or you are just like hit by reality and someone is just giving you the harsh truth of like, man, you're fat, you need to cut down. Like, hire Menno, and let him tell you what he thinks, because he gives it to you straight. I know that because he did it with other people already.
I think it's funny because you normally hear of the people who are, and we'd normally put ourselves in that category of overestimating probably our fatness because we have a bit of false perception. But there's definitely people who underestimate, and men in general, I think, are known for underestimating their body fat. Like, oh yeah, I'm 15%, I've got an ab or something. So anyway, probably should get to another question.
Yeah, let's do this. Let me scroll up here. Cal Downs. Hi, Steve and Pascal. I hope you're both well. Thank you very much, Cal. How do you account for strength differences on opposite sides of the body? E.g., when doing bicep curls with dumbbells left versus right arm might have different RERs at specific weight. Would you do different numbers of reps on each arm to fall into the RER range?
Very interesting. Cal's a client of mine, so big up Cal. He has done so well with this lockdown and everything. I'm very impressed. But anyway, interesting, because I would normally, in my experience, for me, I don't tend to have that. Like, I'm right-handed, but my right bicep, for example, or my right lat or whatever isn't stronger. I tend to just match performance arm or leg to leg, arm to arm when I am doing single arm or leg movements, which isn't that frequent because I don't have an imbalance, and I don't think I need to work on that particularly, and it's less time efficient to do single leg and arm stuff. For clients, I would need them to highlight it to me, and normally they do if there's a clear discrepancy, but normally they don't. And so it's typically I take both to the same reps with the same load because that is ultimately the same RER. Importantly, and I think some people do this, is potentially they do, especially with a lunge, they might do like a Bulgarian split squat. They do their right leg and then they go straight into their left. They get 8 reps with their right and 6 with their left. They're like, oh, my left is weaker. It's like, or were you just not recovered? Definitely make sure that you recover back your breathing and kind of your cardiovascular so that the muscle is the limiting factor, because I have seen that happen where they're kind of rushed to the other side and then it seems weaker when in reality it's not. They're just under recovered cardiovascularly. So that's my experience, at least.
Yeah, and we've talked about like muscular imbalances and how to go about it to kind of match the weaker side then, but this is something that I don't want to talk about, but more so to also add to another thing or different perspective here, and that is totally lost my train of thought here. Fucking hell. Give me a second. I can't remember. Then I was just about to actually say it, and then all of a sudden it was gone.
Pinched from the brain.
Who took that idea now from me? I don't know. Maybe I will think about it like later again.
For you, Pascal.
No, yeah, now I know. Now I know again. Perhaps because I have experienced that the same way, that sometimes when I'm doing unilateral work, I come to realize that I have a harder time with the mind-muscle connection on one side or the other. But I think that it has to do with then perhaps that you're executing the technique slightly different on the other side than the opposite side, which is normal, right? We are also not the best at writing with the left hand if we are right hand also. And that's the same what I can see here as well. There's kind of a coordination component to it that you sometimes have a harder time coordinating the other side. So, for example, with leg presses or so, I have one side where I'm, or the single leg press or something like Bulgarian split squats. I always need to have a little bit of a different stance with one leg than the other. Also, the feet needs to be turned inwards a little bit more with my right leg to actually get into a proper position. And I also would think that this has not only to do with coordination of that limb or muscle part, but also at the same time due to individualization. So, of course, you're not a symmetrical being of like your both arms are the absolute same length. Same goes for the legs. My left leg is longer than the right one. And perhaps this also contributes to this then as well. How much? I don't know. But this is just an assumption that I have, that too many people think that one side needs to look exactly like the other side. And that's why I need to curl exactly that same way or so, right? Without considering that we are like individual beings, and even there are individual differences on our body as well.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think a lot of people do think that you should be perfectly symmetrical, but like you could squat and one foot could be slightly more out than the other foot. I definitely have had that before. Or like deadlifting, one might be slightly more splayed. So I think that's well said. And I've got an injury on my left side, so there's definitely like an imbalance here somewhere. I would say if Cal or anyone listening is looking for like, my general recommendation would be always work to the RAR. So if you're doing your right and left side, take both sets to the RAR you're targeting. If you're not completely sure, just match them, because you're unlikely to have a huge discrepancy. And if you do, you'll definitely know. So if you're a bit unsure, I'd say do your right side first, then match it with your left. You're probably in the ballpark. You're certainly not miles away, unless you have a real discrepancy there, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Moving on to the next question. I think that we have time for another question. So, Kitchich Ludovic. Hi, guys. In a gaining phase, I'm struggling to gain weight. I steadily increase my caloric intake, but want to avoid the dirty result. Maybe I'm too much cautious. Could you give some advice to focus on so that we are not disturbed or discouraged by other things like being afraid of gaining fat instead of muscles? Bonus question, which are your favorite carb sources and which one do you use to increase your caloric intake? Thank you very much. Keep going your journey.
I like it. Awesome. So yeah, I've spoken a lot about adipose phobia, so fat phobia, and it's definitely something I suffered from before. And that's why I think both me and Pascal are a fan of like a purposeful surplus. So we know we're gaining weight. And I always like to think like, do you ever want to put in all that time and effort into the gym and work that hard and be on top of your sleep to not maximize muscle growth and put yourself in just a determinable surplus? I see this with people who are trying to do body recomposition, which I think is cool and it certainly can happen. But especially as someone relatively advanced, man, you have to work really hard to be able to allow for body recomposition to occur and not put yourself into a surplus to gain. And I'm like, well, if you're nailing every variable, but then not putting that surplus there, you could be gaining a great deal more muscle. So this is like finding this middle ground between this question and then like Andrew White, where he's gone all the way, whereas this one's like creeping behind. And that's the main thing that sold it to me, was like, man, I work so hard in the gym, I put in all this time, and I'm just underselling myself every single month when I'm just kind of maintaining weight and not really putting my all down. And then I just focus on the things that are on this gaining side, the increased flexibility with your food, the ability to train harder in the gym, the performance that brings, filling out t-shirts, feeling full and satiated, full of energy all the time. And know that, and I always bring up the analogy, gaining muscles like cycling uphill. It's fucking hard. Don't make the process harder by not putting a surplus in there. Whereas losing fat's like cycling downhill. It's a pretty streamlined process. So know that you can get lean. And just the more experience that you have going through this phase, the better you'll get at dealing with that little bit of fat gain that comes along with it. And over time, these phases tend to look better and better as well as you kind of build the muscle underneath. So that's my advice, at least.
Yeah, and Steve has made a presentation over on our member side about struggles of gaining weight. So I would highly recommend you checking out that presentation, because it may be helpful for someone like you who is struggling of gaining weight and also dealing with then the fat accumulation. I don't really have anything to add there. I think that you covered it very well. He just asked for the favorite carb sources, and it's an easy one to answer. Can you guess it?
I'm hoping it's potato.
No.
Cheerios.
Cereals.
Cereals, like, okay.
Yeah.
Is Cheerios number one?
Yeah, it could be. Depends on my mood, though. Depends on the mood. Sometimes I'm a chocolate guy. Sometimes I'm a clean guy.
I'm really into cereal at the moment. Oh, sorry, not cereal. Shredded wheat cereal. And I have 3 variations on the go at the moment.
Are they good? Whenever I'm seeing those, right, I think like, I would like to try them, but they look so dry and bland.
Frosted shredded wheat are good. So I have no plain shredded wheat because that would be like eating oats or something. So yeah, frosted shredded wheats. I have mince pie shredded wheats. So they're mince, like normally they're raisins inside, but they've put in like some spice to make it kind of mince pie like. And then choco shredded wheats, and they're the best.
Okay.
They have like chocolate inside basically. They're very good.
What about steak?
What do you mean steak?
Or cheese taste.
Cheesy. Like they're not savory.
Just imagine having like cheddar cereals.
Oh, there'd be some weirdo that would like that.
Probably. Oh boy. Or what's kind of disgusting and smelly and stuff. Just imagine that as cereals.
Well, I posted the mince pie cereal, and an American messaged me and was like, really? Mince meat in a cereal? I was like, no, Google mince pies. And they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. It's like a sweet dessert.
Onion cereals. Like dried onions, putting them in a cereal bowl and then eating them with milk.
It's like when people do their savory oats and they have like bacon and like, I don't know, cheese on it. And I'm like, what the fuck? These weird Americans.
Yeah. What's kind of a weird habit that you did as a kid? Like a weird combination of foods. Did you have some?
Can't remember. With cereal, all I remember doing is I'd always fill up. I'd have granola at the bottom, and then I'd put like chocolate Wheater bits, and then I'd put Cocoa Pops on top. I remember eating that every day after school, and I could never finish it. I was always stuffed.
I always hated mixing my cereals.
I loved it.
No, I always hated that. I wanted to have that one taste and not both. It was too much for me. But some people were doing something like, I don't know, meat toast with
meat.
Yeah, meat. Just
meat
like
toast.
Yeah, some kind of meat.
Okay.
Some kind of, I don't know, whatever. With jelly or so, something like that. Where it was like, oh God, what is wrong with you?
I can remember one time when I was getting into the gym, first of all, and I was like, oh, protein's really important. My mum was like, baked beans is protein. So then I remember for breakfast, I'd have a tin of baked beans with chicken breast. and I'd just eat it like a bowl of cereal. It was awful.
I mean, we had some crazy stories, right? It's also, there was a time where I was still working in an office as a post artist. And now looking back in hindsight, I'm so sorry for my co-workers.
Eggs.
No, because I had for nearly each and every single time, or it was during a cutting phase, each and every single lunch, I had like a salad with raw onions, right? Raw onions, and it stank so much, man. And of course, because I was eating that, I couldn't really smell that as much, right? But I know it must have stank so much. Disgusting.
I did boiled eggs on the way to work on the train, and like boiled eggs and ketchup.
or opening a can of tuna in just like a closed room, like, I don't know, in a bus or so.
I would do it. I was that guy
I
in the corner.
I did it. Yeah, I did it. And then I poured that, oh man, sorry to say that. The cat is out of the bag. I even poured the water like besides the seat, right? Because I
that's so bad.
No place to put it actually. So yeah, the tuna water actually just dried then besides the seat. Oh boy. Anyway,
so
let's share the screen now, and then go over to actually giving once again a free membership out there. So here we are now, the improvement season 178. Do you need a goal? And also here once again, very very cool, the engagement and the goal physiques of people. Like, I had some good laughs, and also a lot of where I was just like, yeah, that's cool. YouTube comment picker going over here. Copy pasting, get some YouTube. 26 again. What is it? Always 26 comments.
Is that like its limit?
It could be. I don't know. It's very weird that we're always getting 26 comments. But who is it? Can you pronounce that name?
Swapnil
Zenvar. Cool. When I began my journey, I never had a physique goal. It was to look better when I look in the mirror and still remains the same. This is very, very cool. And I think that many people started like that. And yeah, I mean, Once again, what was his name again? Swapnil, reach out to one of us to receive your free membership. And if not, then yeah, no one gets a free membership this time around. So guys, as always, thank you very much for tuning in.
Question?
Thank you. Yeah, that's true. What is it?
I was trying to think of something a bit different, but I'm just really struggling for some reason. Oh, maybe, I don't know if this is an appropriate time to do it, but let's do it. Goals for 2021? Any in particular? Physique?
Goals? Yeah.
And a bonus, a life goal?
Yeah, that's good.
Go with that.
Cool. No, guys, I was about to say thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for listening. As always, can you guess what I wanted to say? Yes. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell notification button. And I guess that's it for this time. And once again, thank you so much for the continuous support. When I received all of those tags over on Instagram, seeing how many hours all of those people listened to, I was crying. I really was crying. I'm crying a lot lately. Yeah. So anyway, leave it here. And I guess I'll speak to you guys soon.
See you guys. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.